I truly believe that if you work hard, if you focus on developing your talents and ultimately try to be a good person, that you'll be able to go very far very quickly. Hey, I'm Cooper Scanlon, co-founder of Movement Labs, and I'm all about economic empowerment. Move as a language is a very powerful new technology, having better performance, better security, as well as opening the door to a lot of new use cases and a great leap forward in coding language development. And what Movement Labs does is it brings the Move language to market in a Web3 native way by democratizing and decentralizing its scale and adoption. So in particular, like Amazon, we deliver the Move language to the front door of builders, users, communities where they are right now, making it very accessible, as well as then creating frameworks in the way that we go to market that create a common tide to raise all ships, in which as the Move language sees more adoption, we're creating hard-coded fairness structures and equity structures such that the participants in the network, whether you are a builder, a developer, a writer, or whatever level or area you are participating in, that you hold a piece of the pie. I think one very interesting phenomenon that is recently being talked more about and coming more to light is the concept of major network launches. So in particular, what we've seen in the past is a lot of low float, high valuation tokens, in which from a market perspective, that means if you have a low float, it takes relatively little buying or selling to have an impact on the price, which can be very precarious when paired with a high valuation and having investors or having folks that have early unlocks or early access to tokens, which then get sold into retail. Way back in the day of crypto, you had many tokens launching just off of a white paper and what's called an ICO. And although there were many scams, for projects that were legitimate, it gave everyday people an opportunity to support that project early and be able to ride that wave. For example, Ethereum had incredible returns, as did Solana. But as markets have progressed, what we've seen is a lot of what we call price discovery is happening in private markets. That is when a team is just selling to investors, accredited investor, KYC folks, where that might not be available to everyday people or everyday community members. So that means that right now, the main way that folks are able to get involved with the project is once it hits a centralized exchange, which after that, the price discovery has already happened. A lot of teams hit centralized exchanges at a fully diluted valuation that is not sustainable, and the everyday people end up being the ones who pay the price for the early investors and for the people who are selling tokens. And so it's been a very interesting, like as an ecosystem, as a network, folks in Web3 are having more discussions around the implications of price discovery happening on private markets, as well as the downfalls and pitfalls that are associated with tokens that launch with low floats, low circulations, and very high fully diluted valuations. Yeah, oh man, it has been one long journey. So growing up, it was quite difficult. I was very independent. I was taking care of myself, had situations of being kicked out multiple times from multiple different households, and ultimately kind of realized like the only person that I could really rely on and count on was myself. And so that was a really difficult realization to have growing up, because I was also in a place where there's no opportunity. It's one of those places where chickens cross the roads. Like it's not even like a one stoplight town. We don't have lights. There's nothing out there. And so it was, very stressful to think, how do I get out of this situation? Because it was very clear what was destined for me and, the direction that things were heading in, and oftentimes felt like a purgatory. And so pretty early on, just got lasered in on ACT. That was something that, although it was quite stressful because it was something that wasn't taught where I was from, I didn't really have anyone to necessarily teach me it. There were a lot of resources online. to get to grind. For example, like Reddit, there were some applications and flashcards and things that I spent a lot of time on to be able to earn a golden ticket to go to a great university in the US. But when I arrived at Vanderbilt, I realized I was still pretty lost. Even though I had nailed that performance, this was, it's like a championship game. You got to go back to back to back to, you got to win these games. You can't just win one, you have to win them all if you really want to take it all the way. And so in that, it was quite lost because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, right? We didn't have careers where I was from. Nobody went to college. And so I really didn't know what I was doing. But in that, came to become quite interested in finance, which I always was rather interested in. The concept of being able to make money with your money. When I was in a situation taking care of myself, taking care of my family, I was bleeding out so much that to be able to stop that hemorrhaging through investing would be quite interesting to me. But I never really was able to because most of the time I had maybe like $50, $100 in my bank account. I needed that liquid because there were a lot of times, my card would decline trying to buy food, right? And so when I got to college and started living off campus for the very first time, I got these refund checks from the school because I wasn't paying for housing, I wasn't paying for a meal plan, and so my aid was higher than my net charges. So the idea was that I would take that, I would go and put it to an apartment, meals, but naturally I went and invested every penny of it. I was just like degenning. I went pretty hard on lithium, started to get my toes wet in investing, made a little money, lost a lot of money, came to crypto, more of the same, right? So when I first discovered crypto, I was very interested in it as the intersection of finance and technology, in which technology is a great vehicle to go from 0 to 1 without requiring significant capital, whether that be social or even financial, to start a company, as well as, like how on the internet, no one knows you're a dog. In tech industries, people look at your product, they look at what you're building. And so it's one of the few areas where, as a dropout, you can have opportunity. It doesn't matter where you're from. It doesn't matter what your background is. And it's truly democratizing in that sense. So originally I was taking blockchain and leveraging that in TradFi use cases, where the idea is that if you can create better information systems, then you can reduce inefficiencies and you can ultimately create a product that's a no-brainer for people to use. And so originally I was working with a fund of funds, I was teaching them about blockchain, I was learning about their business, and then together architecting solutions that would power their fund structure using blockchain. So it was an incredible experience. It was something I was building with a few other college kids back when I was there. And I truly learned so much and was instrumental in gaining experience, like doing a startup, starting something. Even before that, I was doing things with NFTs and like ticketing, which I think a lot of people were doing at that time, funnily enough. But through that experience, was very interested in this concept of applying blockchain and information systems to traditional industries. But for the one that I was working in, Solidity wasn't really geared towards that, right? Because one, you're dealing with real world assets. You're dealing with significant sums of money in which security is not even a selling point, it is a must-have. And so there's a lot of issues with Solidity as a language when it comes to security concerns and even human readability, right? So in explaining the code, explaining what we built to folks, we had to constantly be walking them through it, something that it wasn't intuitive to them to be able to understand, as well as then always having to address the question of security. I'm speaking to them. So when I was looking into other smart contract development languages that I could build this platform with, I came across Move, which is a Rust derivative. So you have very strongly typed assets. You have very strong ownership and account-based models for whether it's your NFT or your token or whatever, and then being able to create modules in which you're defining essentially pipelines for how where information can flow to and from, and who has authorization to push that from one place to another. So it was really revolutionary to think about in a much more logical way, right? It was built by Facebook for their Libra Diem program, when they were looking to onboard all of their big tech, all of their big finance partners, as well as be securing a whole lot of data on chain. And they too came to the realization that Solidity, it wasn't scalable. It didn't cut it. They wanted to make something more of a Rust derivative language. So when I came across the language, I realized like this doesn't just solve my problem that I was building for, but it actually solves the problem of the broader industry, and not just solving the problems of the industry where we have another hack every other week, but also laying the groundwork for onboarding the next generation of Web3. Because I truly believe that if we want to onboard the next million users, we need to at least onboard the next 100, next 1,000 developers. And as a language, Move was significantly easier to learn. It's significantly more intuitive for blockchain use cases. And in fact, if you look at emerging markets where people are getting access to the internet and completely leapfrogging, traditional structures as a nation, as an ecosystem, are coming to Web3 and they're coming to Move. So especially if you look at areas such as Vietnam and such as Bangalore, where you have some of the hungriest, scrappiest people, they're learning Move and building with Move smart contracts, opting to leapfrog Solidity and come to the cutting edge of the cutting edge in Web3. And so in that, I was inspired to not only put a pause on what I was building so I could immerse myself in the Move language, but even drop out of college as well and take a big bet. I was doing an internship at the time as well, and kind of realized, like, in terms of scalable opportunities and as a new economic entrant, most career paths in most industries, they've already been catalyzed. They're very static at this point because you have a few companies that control all of the market share, and it's really difficult to go head to head with them. They're not going to allow it. Whereas Web3, it's a much more dynamic industry in which new companies, new ideas, it really is a crucible. And so to be able to be one of the first Move builders, one of the first builders of a language that can completely upend the way that we think about security, the way that we think about smart contract development, and the way that we build applications, sign me up. So I went all in on Move, took a big bet on the language, building one of the first applications. I was creating structured products because I was still very interested in finance and very keen to build a backbone for the Move economy. Unfortunately, the way that Move came to market, it was very difficult to grow adoption as an application builder. So you had launching in a bear market where there wasn't just not a lot of liquidity. There's actually liquidity leaving Web3 and migrating to Ethereum. Additionally, having to bridge assets to a new blockchain is a huge ask for people, especially in a difficult market. And then having to be on totally new applications as a builder versus being able to use the same infrastructure and exist within the same ecosystem as the places you're familiar with. So I like to think of it as, if you're living in New York City, it's going to be a tough sell to get you to come out to like Ohio. So, and that's even if Move language could completely change the game. It was lacking the catalyst that would drive its adoption and properly bring it to market. And so it's that experience of being one of the first Move builders and getting wiped that actually inspired Movement Labs and this vision to democratize and decentralize the Move language while also bringing it to market in a Web3 native way in a common tide to raise all ships. I'm tremendously grateful for the success that we've been able to see, as well as all of our supporters and backers. There were a lot of really early folks who, at that point, they were taking a huge bet on the Move language. They were taking a bet on myself and Rushi as co-founders that we would be able to deliver this. And ongoing, even the builders on us are taking a bet on our network, our community. They're taking a bet with their time and energy to spend it on us. And it just means the world to me to be able to return something to them, to be able to make them proud and to do right by them. So it has been looking back, it's gone tremendously fast, because even a year ago, we were in a very different position than we are right now, and have been able to do so much so quickly. And I truly believe that, we have a wonderful team. We have a wonderful technology that we're working with. Move language, it's a light to me. It's something that I believe can change the world. But oftentimes, I still feel like I'm in the situation that I was, whether it be a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, where although I have been able to make so many steps and I'm starting to see the clearing, I'm not necessarily out of the woods yet. But honestly, I'm pretty happy that way because I think that I do my best when my back's up against the wall. And ultimately, I have a mission to deliver the Move language to the market, to deliver something for everyone who has believed in us, everyone who has contributed to us being able to get where we are today. And frankly, I'm going to stay hungry until that happens. Yeah, I mean, crypto Twitter, there's always fun things happening there. Oftentimes in group chats and in builder chats, people will send things themselves. And so I think that that's a tremendous way and helps you be a part of a bigger conversation. It helps you meet others and ultimately discuss your ideas. That for folks who are interested in learning more about Web3 and opportunities in the industry, it's firstly a really small industry. As people in it, we don't always have the opportunity to talk to people. Like, I remember in my journey here, I spent a lot of time just talking about crypto nonstop when I was in college and to my friends. And not everyone rocks with that. So if you have a friend that's interested in crypto, I think asking questions, like, they will be so happy just to get to talk about it with you, talk about something they care about with someone that they care about, as well as help you get your bearings. And once you're in the industry, highly recommend popping by a conference, going to side events. You don't need to get a main ticket. There's usually like a Google Sheets that has a list of all of the side events that you can go to. Pull up and just talk to people, ask questions, learn. And ultimately, if you can get in a group chat where people are regularly sending things and discussing them, it's a wonderful opportunity to learn more and stay in the loop without necessarily having to search for things. We were incredibly inspired by the modular thesis, which kind of like going from an Xbox or PlayStation to a PC, which you go from having, one single box that you can't change anything about it, you get what you get, to something that is modular, where you have different components, where those components can be more highly specialized and create stronger network effects with one another. Modularity has been pioneered in the Web3 space and has opened so many doors. But oftentimes it can feel like one of those 1,000-piece blue sky puzzles in which you don't necessarily know where things fit. And it can be so esoteric that you, even as a builder, or especially as an end user, don't necessarily know what you're benefiting from. So our vision with Integrated is, as a Move-based blockchain, where we believe that we have one of the most safe, one of the most performant virtual machines, we're combining that with other pieces of the blockchain stack, the best data availability, the best settlement, the best consensus, to create something that is a novel product. We are integrating these different puzzle pieces together in a way that has tangible benefits for the developer and for the end user, and something that logically it makes sense put together. So we're taking that blue sky puzzle, we're putting it together, and then delivering it into the hands of every network participant. And so the thesis behind Integrated Day is that we can share that good news with others, as well as give a place for all of our Move builders, all of our supporters, everyone who's taking a big bet on us, not only to meet each other, but then get to meet more folks who might be interested in learning about the Move language, learning about the integrated thesis as the next logical step in modular design, as well as learning more about movement, because ultimately we're here to welcome people. It's not a movement if we're not all a part of it. What honestly has brought me the most fulfillment is getting to share this opportunity with others. So a lot of doors have opened for us. We've gone through many places very, very quickly, and it's now our greatest strength and it's our greatest happiness to help pull others through them. So whether you are a builder looking for something of a strong narrative, looking for a compelling use case to build with, whether you're someone who already has an application and at this stage you're looking for investors, you're looking for backers and for more partnerships so we can get you integrated and plugged into our cap table and into our ecosystem, who is always very eager to welcome new friendly faces to the movement, as well as for other new economic participants, folks who are navigating this very difficult economy that in many ways has been stacked against us to extract value and energy for us and return very little. it truly brings me joy to be able to share the path that I have found and what I have seen been able to find success in with others and help pull them up as well. So I would highly recommend for anyone looking to connect is to, one, go to Movement Labs XYZ. It's across all socials, whether on the website, Twitter, Discord, Telegram, etc. I would recommend checking out our Twitter because this is where you're going to see a lot of the most up-to-date information about what we're building, as well as a hub to direct you to the other areas of our community, particularly Discord, in which we have a blossoming community. So many folks who see the same and share the same vision that we do, and we'll soon be rolling out guilds, which are artisan groups, such as, looking back in the past, we had groups come together in highly specialized functions to create a whole that is greater than the sum of its parts. And likewise, we've identified that there are so many different ways that as an ecosystem and as a community, people contribute to a network. And in my own experiences, for all of the time that I spent sharing the Move language, teaching others about Move, convincing people to build with me, talking about it to investors, writing articles and educational content on it, I had very little to show for it. And so that's something where we're taking a very, very different approach to it, in which we identify and recognize the various ways that people contribute to blockchain networks. We create dignified work for them so that we're not just asking people to come, click a bunch of buttons and do something that drives the bottom line of a blockchain, but doesn't necessarily give any transferable skill. Rather, to incubate these people, help accelerate them in the skill sets that they're looking to develop and contribute in, whether they are a developer, a writer, community moderator, they like to make art or memes or other forms of content, whatever it be, there is a home and a place for you in the movement. And it's on us to identify that, to recognize that, and then create structures by which people can find their skill set, find a guild, join, meet other guild members, be mentored by them, accelerated them, and one day not only find work in the movement ecosystem, but actually in the applications and the teams that are building on us as well. So it truly is our vision that we can democratize what it means to enter the economy, to develop a skill set, and do so in a way where your contributions to the network not only earning you a fair piece of the network, but it's something that you can take with you wherever you go and truly grow and develop as a person too.